Hi. So far, all I've talked about in my videos is about why it can be proved biblically that Jehovah's Witnesses from the Watchtower Society does not have the truth, and because it doesn't tally up with the Bible. But I thought today I'd actually give a bit more of my own story for anyone that might be interested. Um, because my story has changed a little bit over the past week or so for the worse, and so I know a lot of exJWs will understand this, but this is more for exJWs to understand and hopefully feel somewhat comforted that other people are going through the same thing, or for any current Jehovah's Witnesses to understand what it's like for someone that has been shunned and what that does to someone and how that affects them, you know. So far, 5 years ago I was disfellowshipped, which was the worst day of my life at the time, and I was disfellowshipped for being the only one who was actually honest in the situation. I was disfellowshipped for getting involved with a girl who was the step niece of what was the presiding overseer, is now called the coordinator of the body of elders. On my judicial committee, they felt that I didn't have enough faith in God, and that I therefore wasn't repentant, that I continued to do things that were wrong, even though I didn't do any gross misconduct, if you want to use, watchtower terminology. But I was the one who turned around and said, no, we need to be clean to the elders and to do the right thing before God, because otherwise we're being dishonest. So that's what we did, and I was honest, very honest, and because of that, I was, disfellowshipped, because I was very direct, very somewhat cold, really, because I just said exactly as it was. I didn't want to be about the bush, didn't want to be dishonest. I really wanted to please God. So, yeah, I got ousted. Sure enough, the lady that I was involved with, she wasn't disfellowshipped. She was later disfellowshipped for doing something else, but that's by the by. That isn't anything to do with me and not for me to talk about. But yeah, I was disfellowshipped. Several months went by. I went to every single meeting, including the one that it was announced that I was no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And then I was trying to be reinstated. I was preparing all of my literature. I was preparing for all the meetings. As you can imagine, for those of you that have been disfellowshipped or have experienced shunning, the initial time was horrendous. It's a cutting off from virtually everyone you know, everyone you hang around with. It's utterly disgusting how they make you feel, because for the longest time I felt that it was the right thing, that I was being disciplined in the right way, and that this was teaching me a lesson that I had to stand up for God and not to be pleasing or to be well looked at amongst the congregation, but I had to just do it for God. And that taught me a lot. That's why I'm doing these now, because I have to stand up for what's right and not to please people, because people are, in the grand scheme of things, not important. What is important is standing up and doing what's right. Yeah, so then what happened? I was going to virtually every meeting. What was it? It was 5, 6 months, 7 months, something like that. I was nearly getting to be reinstated, but by that time, I got involved with a worldly girl, Because regardless of all of the actual pent up feelings which people have when they can't be with people, when they can't express themselves in a normal, humane way, loneliness is the thing that really sets in with people. It doesn't do you any good. There's that scripture that says not to isolate yourself, because if you isolate yourself, what is it? You lose all. It doesn't say this, but it says basically that you lose all sense of perspective, which is true. You don't think straight when you don't have people that actually do love you around you. You don't have that humane companionship with people, no proper friends. And because I was still indoctrinated for several years after that, I felt like I actually couldn't hang around with other people. So I was constantly isolating myself. I ate a lot of ice cream. Ben and Jerry's was particular, because it just felt so crap. Felt awful, as you can imagine. I binge watched a lot of TV series. I watched some really good TV series. I'm not going to talk about them now because, I could do, but there's not really anything to do with this video. But yeah, so I did a lot of that. That was my way of being able to feel like I wasn't on my own, because at least I could immerse myself in stories. And I did that for years. I have been binge watched so many TV series. It's unbelievable. A lot of American ones, some English ones, and some of them fantastic. But it does eat up a lot of your time. I just could spend days, watching hours and hours, because I felt so alone. I mean, there was one day, I know, I don't know how long after it was that I was disfellowshipped, but I know there was one day where I was at home and I was in my bedroom, and I just fell to the floor crying. And I'm a grown man, Yeah, I'm not the most tough bloke, but it's not normal, to just be completely floored by what an organisation does to you. So yeah, I got involved with this girl for a while, 6-7 months after I was disfellowshipped, when I was just about to be reinstated, or potentially reinstated. Not pleased with the fact that I obviously hurt her, but I'm pleased with the fact that it stopped me from returning to the organisation, because as I later found out, it isn't true anyway. And that ended because I wanted to be reinstated, and I knew she wasn't the sort of person that would encourage me to go back to meetings or more to worship what I then thought was the true God. So that didn't work out between me and her. Then I've had a new job, and there were issues there that I'm not really going to go into. But what I can say is that with the position that I was in, being very vulnerable psychologically and emotionally, the shunning of the watchtower left me open to be hurt by people that could see that I was very vulnerable at the time, and took advantage of the fact that I was in a very difficult situation. All that time I was living with my dad and my stepmother, who are both Jehovah's Witnesses, and they supported me as much as they could, but only as long as I was trying to actually be reinstated and try to come back to the organisation. So yeah, I went to every meeting, every single meeting. Very, very few that I missed. Only if I was ill, really. And I would sit at the back and have people look at me strangely look at me as if I had some sort of disease. I had some elders and some that would occasionally tap me on the shoulder, kind of to boost me on a bit, to try and give me comfort. And I really appreciate those people that did actually care for me. I know the whole organisation is very twisted and all the rest of it, but I appreciate that in their way they were doing their best for me. That meant a huge amount at the time, with how low I felt on my own, Can't remember how long afterwards, but it was about a year or maybe a year and a half or so, something like that, that my dad decided to move away with my stepmom. I'm not going to say where and all the rest of it. It's not my business to say on YouTube. But they went away and then moved somewhere else and all the rest of it. So basically I was left on my own. Now, I should probably qualify this to make it easier to understand where I'm coming from. They lived in the north of England, where I am now. And I moved up there, or here, when I had to stop pioneering in London, and I was really finding it hard to to make ends meet. And I had a lot of depression trying to be a pioneer, and I couldn't make it for several reasons, because it's very difficult to toe the line with, like amongst, the witnesses. It's very difficult to be honest and an exemplary JW. Very difficult, because that's what I always did want to do. Is I always wanted to do my best, but I always felt it was most important to be honest. So if I wasn't good enough, then I felt like I should be honest about that. So I was. So I moved up here away from my other family, where they were in London, to live up here with my dad. And that was after he left me. When I was in London, he was there, with me. I was living with him at the time, and then I moved out by myself, and I was there for nearly a year by myself, and then, found it hard, and that's why I moved up here to, go back with him. So I was 18 at the time when I moved up here, to the north. So when he left, this time when I was already up here, I was older, I was more prepared, but it was still difficult. The elders were very much aware that he was leaving and that I was on my own here, but they made no effort to see how I'm doing, to help me spiritually. They were simply not interested. And I think through another video I'll go into the letter that I sent to them and what happened with them, because when JWs think of elders, they think of those that are the hiding place in the wind and those that will do their best to help you, and they don't. They just don't. They're not there when you need them. They're there when you've done something wrong, and they're prepared to judge you and to shun you, but they're not there when you genuinely want the help. So where am I going with this? So I was on my own then. It got to the point at the end of last year when I kept umming and ahhing about things, and my dad kept asking me if I was going to come back to be reinstated, and I said, well, I'd like to, but I need to make sure I know if it's the truth first. I don't want to come back dishonestly. My stepmother gave me a card that said sometimes you have to jump in and let your heart catch up later, which completely disregarded my view of coming back for the honest reasons. I wasn't going to go back to be brainwashed that it was the right decision later. I wanted to make sure that it was the correct decision at the time. So, needless to say, I didn't go back on false pretenses. I wanted to make sure I was going back for being honest and for the right reasons. So at the end of last year, I decided that actually I've been umming and ahhing about this. I need to find out what is true. I need to be sure of what my life is going to be. I can't just keep umming and ahhing for years. So I started doing research, YouTube, etc. Sure enough, the it just came flooding down. What I believed was true was just shown to be completely untrue. Like the whole list of things which were wrong with the organisation. Some of the big things were the UN link that the Watchtower had, and I couldn't believe that. I was so against the UN, having been brought up to believe that that the actual UN was supposed to be the image of the seventh wild beast. I'm trying to remember exactly how it was. It was the image of the beast. No, the image of the beast, which represented the whole of the seven world empires, which was supposed to be the eighth king of the seven. Anyway, there's no point in going through all that. For any JWs, you know what I'm talking about. So, for me to hear that, that the Watchtower was remotely involved with them, I couldn't believe it at first. I thought that's obviously rubbish. It can't be true. What planet are you on that the true organisation would get involved with with the beast? Other things as well was what Watchtower was investing in the hedge funds, and also investing in things like to do with the military and to do with artillery. I didn't believe that was even possible. I couldn't believe that. It just seemed so overwhelmingly ridiculous to me but obviously once you start looking and seeing these things, you can't unlook. You have to look and find out. You can't just leave it because they're questions that are just too big. You have to find out whether these things are true. And sure enough, because of those things, I started to look at other things. And obviously the paedophile issue and how they're protecting paedophiles and how they're protecting the organisation sickened me to the core once I understood that better and could see it clearly for what it was. I couldn't believe that any God-directed organisation would ever cover up child abuse, especially when we as witnesses had slagged off the Catholic Church so much, or anyone else that had covered up child abuse. I thought, there's no way. So anyway, regardless of all that, the main thing is that from the beginning of the year until now, I woke up and then I decided to start doing YouTube videos. Up to this point, my dad was talking to me because in his mind, he didn't need to shun me as long as I was disfellowshipped but wanting to come back to the organisation. I wanted to be reinstated. So in his mind, I was an inactive JW. That would be one way to put it. But that my heart was in the right place. So therefore, if he could encourage me, then he would. Also, what he said was that if there are any questions that I want to find the answers to, that he would help me find them. So after all of this flooding of information that I had, I wrote a list. I wrote a list of things that I wanted to actually find out and make sure of. So I did my research. I then found out so much about the organisation, and asked him. Said, "Well, you said you would help me. These are the questions I have. Please do." As you can imagine, the response was, "Well, no, it's apostate stuff. I can't look at that. It's you're too close to me." Was one of them. He was never the sort of man to actually deal with an issue. He would always want to hand it to someone else. As a kid, I was always given to other spiritually qualified people, if you will, to study with me and to teach me about what I thought was the truth. So while he was there as my father, he wasn't, if I could say this way, he wasn't much of a spiritual head. He wasn't very much of a strong spiritual man to show me the way, which actually in Deuteronomy 6 states very clearly how it's the parents' responsibility to teach and inculcate into their children what the truth is. So yeah, that never washed from me. So I asked him. He wouldn't answer me. He just thought I was an apostate, and just thought, well, I'm on the wrong track, and I'm not finding the truth, and that I'm intelligent enough to find out for myself. What I thought, well, I have looked, and I've come up with my conclusions, and this is what I found. So either you help me find something different, or I'll hold on to my views that I have already built, because I've already found out what is the truth, about the truth, which is that it's a lie. Then later, after years, by the way, it's been 3 or 4 years. I might go through this with some other video. It depends on how much people actually do want to see this. The chairman of the judicial committee that had disfellowshipped me, he decided to come and speak to me as if it was yesterday. So he came to my home. I made him very welcome. He was expecting me to be, bitter, but no, I was awfully welcoming. I was very warm to him. I had nothing against him. I have something against the organisation, obviously, but against him personally, well, he's as much of a victim as everyone else. So I decided to ask him. I said, well, I have a lot of questions about the organisation. I want to find out. And that way I will come back. I want to know the truth. If you can help me with them, by all means ask the other elders, please. I'd like to know. So I spoke about a little, bit of them. Even about the disfellowshipping thing, about how shunning doesn't seem to make sense at all, how it doesn't tally with the prodigal son, because the prodigal son hadn't even repented when he was going back home to his father. He had spent all his money, that all of his inheritance and all the rest of it, and had done very questionable things, shall we say. But the father, even when the son was in the distance, he saw him and he opened his arms and he ran to him and he welcomed him. I just didn't see that in the Kingdom Hall. When I went in there and had to pretend I didn't exist and I was less than human, and sit at the back and be meek and not say anything to anyone and be very respectful and not talk, it's just horrendous. It just doesn't tally. Anyway, I'm going completely off track. That's what I do. But in this video, it's all about trying to express how it was for me and how it was for me personally. So yeah, the elders said that he would go and speak to the elders. Anyway, he didn't. He said that he speaks to them tonight. This was weeks and weeks later. Anyway, it got to the point where I gave him a letter explaining how I felt about things and how I did want to know. But he just encouraged me to look at the exJw.org site, which is supposed to answer everything, which it doesn't. He also said that he would wear a pink suit if the governing body told him to do. He does what they tell him to do. He doesn't actually question. And I thought, how is this the truth when you can't actually question things? You're only just told what you're meant to believe, and that you're supposed to swallow it. And if you don't like it, then there's something wrong with you. Just obviously looking back at it now and taking a right step back and looking at it, thinking this is madness. But you just couldn't see that when I was indoctrinated, Anyway, it got to the point anyway, regardless of all that I started making YouTube videos. I created a Facebook account, I changed a Facebook account to have it as my apostate account, Gab's Glass Ceiling, so to go hand in hand with the YouTube channel. And I started adding JWs that I used to know as friends, telling them that I was reinstated, which I'm not proud of, but I did do it for the right reasons. So if any of you that I have added are watching this, I do apologise for lying to you. I shouldn't have done. But I did it with the intention that the only way that someone might actually hear or see the truth about the organisation is that if it is through someone that they trust. and that you just simply won't listen to someone that's labelled an apostate because you feel like they're just there to hurt you and to take away your faith. When I've always been about, actually seeking the truth. And if you're a truth seeker, like I like to think of myself as, you would, like agree with what my ideals are. Is just to actually find out what is true. So yeah, because of all of that, my dad had talked to me less and less, and the conversations and chats were becoming more and more shallow. They had been becoming very shallow for quite a while. The times that him and my stepmom were at my home, they had looked at my things and gone through my stuff when I wasn't here. I'm sure because they felt that they were doing something good for me, but they would never be upfront about it. They would never be honest. And I just never got that. I just think, well, if you're going to say something, say it to me. Don't treat me like a child. I'm an adult. If you've got something to say it. If it's the truth, then you should be able to talk about the truth. If it's something to hide, then you won't do it. Like they didn't speak up front about it. They've just continued to hide. So got to the point where the relationship was becoming so into nothing with my dad that I actually sent him an email and said, well, do we have a relationship or not? He didn't give me a straight answer. He said, well, are you going to continue to do the what I'm doing on YouTube and on Facebook? And I said, well, I have to stand up for what I believe in. This is what the organisation actually taught me to do. The organisation taught me from a very early age to stand up for what I believed is right. And then when I was disfellowshipped, to stand up for doing what's right regardless of what other people thought. And I think, well, any parent that loves conditionally on that level and won't talk to their child simply because they are standing up for what's right, even though it goes against what they say, isn't a parent at all. I don't believe any parent should love their child conditionally, and I think it's a disgusting behaviour. But being in a cult, they can't see that. They think that actually somehow it's doing the best and it's doing the right thing, to stand up for what they believe is their God, and to for them to do what's right. So, to cut a long story short, no, we don't have anything to do with each other anymore. I asked to get a few things that were mine back from him. So anyway, I had to drive 2 hours from where I am to actually get to his home to get the things. And he emailed me the night before saying that he did not wish to see me, that I had gone too far. So the last time that he would potentially see me, he didn't want to see me. Did he do that because he felt like it was doing something good for me, in the sense that it would shake me to the core to wake me up? That maybe if he's not going to see me, I'll come back to the organisation? Well, if anything, it pushes me away, because I always have been very clear with the elders and with my dad and with anyone really, that I will do what I believe is right, and if you can show me what's right, then I'll do that. But they didn't decide to talk with me about things. They didn't want to discuss things, because as we know, if they did discuss things, they'd see that the Bible completely contradicts what they believe. So I went all the way. So as far as he was concerned, I was going all that way on my own, and he wouldn't even offer me to use the loo or have a drink or anything. The door wasn't even open. So I picked up what was mine off the doorstep in a bag. I left a few things as well, which were from him, because I thought there's no point in remembering a relationship which was a lie in the beginning, because if it was true, it would never have been diminished by what an organisation says. if a relationship was always conditional, if it was always subject to a belief system, then it didn't exist, in my opinion. So for any exJWs that I'm experiencing shunning, my heart goes out to you. Because it kills, it hurts. You know, it's like a death. They're treating you as if you're dead, and in a way you have to treat them as if they're dead, because they don't want anything to do with you and they're not in your life anymore. So as far as I'm concerned, from last Sunday, I no longer have a dad. He's not there, and I have to accept that the man that I want to be is a man of truth, a man of honour, and not one of just cowardice to an organisation. And I believe that anyone who wants to stand up for truth needs to be true to themselves. Now, I'm not suggesting that anyone who is a JW at the moment and wants to leave, or an exJW who's being, or potentially be shunned by their family, go along the route of YouTube so that they are shunned by their family. I'm not saying that anyone should encourage or provoke the shunning of their family. But what I will say is that if you are the sort of person like me who decides that they must stand up for what is right, and if they are able to deal with those consequences, then there's a certain honesty that you can have with yourself, that you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, yeah, I'm proud of being able to be who I am, and not be subject to emotional blackmail by someone who should love and care for you no matter what. And so I just hope that this, me talking about this might encourage anyone who is, having any sort of pain from the organisation. This is what this is about. And for those of you that are JWs, please try and hear what it is like for exJWs, and for those that are being shunned, for oftentimes no more than just wanting to do the right thing and be honest. Also, something that I had forgotten to mention, but should be aware of as JWs, you should be aware of that a lot of exJWs that are being shunned become suicidal, and some actually do kill themselves. But the kind of pain that people go through is inhumane, and is anything but biblical, anything but loving. When you think about 2 Timothy 3:1-5, about the last days, when times hard to deal with will be here, nothing says it better when it says that there will be no natural affection, because people don't. They cut off from what is natural and what is true to what is a made-up fake organisation which doesn't hold water when it comes to scrutiny. It doesn't make sense, and I find that most repellent. It's just disgusting how an organisation will do that to people, and people suffer and people die. Along with all, obviously they die because of the blood transfusion issue and all the rest of it. But this is a big killer as well. Even if it's not literally and physically killing people, which it does, but even those that are not, we're all marred by it, we're all tainted, and it takes years, and some people need real help to get over this. So for anyone that is going through this, please, if you feel it's necessary, and even if you don't, possibly it's a good idea to look for help, because we are all human beings, and we all need taken care of. We all have our minds that need to be straightened out, and our hearts which have been damaged. We need to find the right people to love us and for us to love them, and to actually focus on living your life and being happy. So thank you so much for watching. Take care all.